There's a wanted poster from 1942, distributed across Nazi-occupied France. A woman's face, sketched from descriptions because they never got a photograph. The caption reads, "The enemy's most dangerous spy." The Gestapo had a name for her, the Limping Lady. They knew she walked with a limp. They knew she was organizing resistance fighters across France. What they didn't know was everything else. Her real name was Virginia Hall. Baltimore socialite, American, and the woman Klaus Barbie, the butcher of Lyon himself, called the most dangerous of all Allied spies. This is the story of how a woman with a prosthetic leg, a woman the State Department rejected, a woman told she'd never amount to much, became the spy the Nazis feared most. She had a name for her prosthetic leg, called it Cuthbert, and Cuthbert would carry her across 50 miles of frozen Pyrenees mountains in the dead of winter, with the Gestapo on her heels. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. To understand how Virginia Hall became the Limping Lady, we need to start in Turkey, 1933, a hunting accident that would change everything. Virginia Hall was born in 1906 to a wealthy Baltimore family. She was brilliant, spoke French, German, and Italian fluently, studied at Radcliffe and the Sorbonne. She wanted to be a diplomat, applied to the Foreign Service multiple times. But in 1930s America, women weren't welcome in diplomacy. She was assigned to clerical positions instead. Then came Turkey. December 1933, Virginia was hunting snipe near the city of Smyrna when she climbed over a wire fence, her shotgun discharged. The blast struck her left foot. Gangrene set in. Surgeons had no choice. They amputated her left leg below the knee. Virginia Hall was 27 years old. She was fitted with a wooden prosthesis, 7 pounds of aluminum and wood. Virginia named it Cuthbert. She would wear it for the rest of her life. Most people would have retreated from public life. Virginia didn't. She went back to work at the State Department. And she kept applying for diplomatic positions. In 1939, the State Department gave her a final answer. A memo stated that her disability made her ineligible for a diplomatic career. The door was closed. A year later, Nazi Germany invaded France. Paris fell in June 1940. Britain stood virtually alone against Hitler's war machine. And Virginia Hall saw her opportunity. She volunteered as an ambulance driver in France. When France fell, she escaped to England. And there, she caught the attention of a new organization, the Special Operations Executive. The SOE was Churchill's secret weapon. Their mission: set Europe ablaze through sabotage and resistance. They needed agents who could blend in behind enemy lines. Agents like Virginia. In August 1941, Virginia Hall became the first female SOE agent to take up residence in France. Her cover: an American journalist for the New York Post. Her mission: build a resistance network from scratch. She was based in Lyon, in the so-called Free Zone, Vichy France, technically neutral but crawling with German sympathizers and collaborators, the perfect place to disappear. Virginia rented an apartment, established her journalist credentials, and got to work. She recruited safe house operators, arranged escape routes for downed Allied pilots, and coordinated sabotage missions. She worked under a dozen different code names: Germaine, Marie, Diane, Nicholas, each identity carefully constructed, each one a layer of protection against the Gestapo. On July 15, 1942, Virginia orchestrated one of her most daring operations, a prison break. 12 captured agents walked out of Mossack internment camp using forged paper she'd arranged. The Gestapo knew someone was organizing the resistance in Lyon. They'd intercepted coded radio messages. They'd heard rumors of a woman who walked with a limp, but they couldn't find her. Klaus Barbie arrived in Lyon in November 1942. He was the new Gestapo chief, a man who would earn the nickname the Butcher of Lyon for his brutal torture of resistance fighters. Barbie circulated wanted posters throughout the region. The caption declared, "The enemy's most dangerous spy. We must destroy her." But they never learned her true name or nationality. Barbie was obsessed with capturing her. He reportedly said, and this is a direct quote, "I would give anything to get my hands on that limping Canadian bitch." Canadian. He didn't even know she was American. In November 1942, everything changed. Germany invaded Vichy France. The so-called free zone was free no longer. Virginia's network was compromised. She had to run. The only escape route led south, over the Pyrenees mountains into neutral Spain. In November, in winter conditions. For a woman with a prosthetic leg, it was nearly impossible. Virginia set out with a small group of refugees and a Basque guide. 50 miles of frozen mountain terrain, 7,500 feet of elevation. 2 days of walking with an 8-pound wooden leg strapped to her body. During the crossing, Virginia radioed London. "Cuthbert is giving me trouble." The response from SOE headquarters: "They didn't know Cuthbert was her leg. If Cuthbert is giving you difficulty, have him eliminated." She made it. 2 days of agony through frozen mountain passes, and Virginia Hall walked into Spain. But her war wasn't over. It was just getting started. The British SOE wanted to keep her in London, deemed her too compromised for field work. Virginia refused. She turned to the American Office of Strategic Services, the OSS, forerunner of the CIA. The OSS agreed to send her back to France. Different organization, same mission, but this time Virginia would go in disguise, not as an American journalist but as a French peasant woman. On March 21, 1944, Virginia landed on the coast of Brittany. She'd aged her face with makeup, dressed as an elderly farm woman, and adjusted her gait to disguise her distinctive limp. She spent months herding goats in the Haute-Loire region, looking like just another peasant grandmother. But at night, she was transmitting intelligence to London and training Maquis resistance fighters. Virginia organized 3 battalions of Maquis fighters. She coordinated weapons drops, planned sabotage operations, and prepared the region for the coming Allied invasion. After D-Day, her Maquis forces went on the offensive. They blew up bridges, ambushed German convoys, and cut communication lines. The Germans were fighting blind. By September 1944, Virginia's fighters had cleared the entire Haute-Loire department of German soldiers before American forces even arrived. She'd liberated a region virtually single-handed. When the war ended, the medals came. The British gave her an MBE. The French awarded her the Croix de Guerre. But the most significant honor came from her own country. Virginia Hall received the Distinguished Service Cross, the second highest military decoration in the United States. She was the only civilian woman in World War II to receive this honor. President Truman wanted to present the medal at a public White House ceremony. Virginia declined. She said the publicity would interfere with her future work. She accepted it privately, with only a few officials present. And that phrase, future work, tells you everything you need to know about Virginia Hall. The war might have ended, but her career in intelligence was just beginning. In 1947, Virginia joined the newly formed Central Intelligence Agency. She would serve as an intelligence officer for 14 more years until her mandatory retirement in 1966. She married a fellow OSS officer named Paul Goet in 1950. They retired to a farm in Maryland, where Virginia raised geese and poodles. A quiet end for an extraordinary life. Virginia Hall died in 1982 at the age of 76. For decades, her story remained classified. Most Americans never knew her name. It wasn't until 2016 that the CIA publicly honored her contributions. They named a training facility in her honor, the Virginia Hall Expeditionary Center. So what do we take from Virginia Hall's story? What does she teach us about courage, about persistence, about refusing to accept the limits others place on you? She was rejected by the State Department, told her disability made her ineligible for a diplomatic career. She responded by becoming one of the most effective intelligence officers in American history. The Gestapo hunted her for years. They called her the most dangerous spy in France. And she escaped by walking 50 miles over frozen mountains with a wooden leg she'd named Cuthbert. The lesson isn't that you should become a spy. The lesson is that the thing you think disqualifies you, the limitation, the rejection, the door slammed in your face, might be exactly what sets you apart. If you want to learn more about Virginia Hall, I'd recommend A Woman of No Importance by Sonia Purnell. It's the definitive biography, meticulously researched and beautifully written. The International Spy Museum in Washington, D.C. also features exhibits on Virginia Hall and other female spies of World War II. Worth a visit if you're in the area. And if this kind of story interests you, the hidden figures, the forgotten heroes, hit subscribe. We cover these overlooked chapters every week. You know, there's something else about Virginia Hall that doesn't get mentioned often enough. She wasn't just brave, she was angry, and that anger, That refusal to accept no powered everything she did. The State Department told her she couldn't be a diplomat, so she became something more dangerous than any diplomat could ever be. She became the agent they couldn't catch, the organizer they couldn't stop. When Klaus Barbie finally fled France after the war, he captured and tortured hundreds of resistance fighters. But he never got Virginia Hall. She was the one who got away. And she helped bring him down. Barbie escaped to South America. He lived in Bolivia under an alias for decades. It wasn't until 1983 that he was extradited to France to stand trial for crimes against humanity. Virginia had died the year before. Virginia Hall never sought recognition. She declined the public ceremony with Truman. She worked in the shadows even after the war. Her satisfaction came from the work itself, from knowing what she'd accomplished. The limping lady, the woman with the wooden leg, the spy the Nazis feared most. Virginia Hall proved that the only limits that matter are the ones you refuse to accept. Thanks for listening. Until next time, keep questioning, keep learning, and keep looking for the stories they forgot to tell you.